Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host for today's broadcast, Insane Layer 13, as we are preparing to get underway for the third out of 6 stints for TORA's 12 hours at Spa-Francorchamps. Real quick, let's go ahead and look at some of the drivers who will be taking place here in this third stint, and then we're going to get into some of the topics to talk about before we get underway here. Berlud Bitumi is going to be one of the drivers running in the MG TCR car, and that is one thing I do want to say right now. This is not a GT Enduro, this is a TCR Enduro, touring car Enduro. All the cars are front-wheel drive. We'll talk more about that later. F1R Legrect is also going to be in another one of the MGs. So will EBT Big Cry in the Simpsons machine. And F1R Eclipse will be in the X-Power MG. TNR Skitty is going to be in the Arma Audi. PTG J Caesar will be in one of the Audis as well. So will ZR Haya Cranky, who has been a frequent appearer in these events. You also have Dex X Danny in the Audi and AFMG Sam in the Audi. You will also be seeing ESV Karts, VER Dr. Ice, Dex Twilight, Dex Kokados, India Wara, ESV Pav, CH Racing 88, TBR Virtuoso, and ZR Ruiz Racer all are going to be in the Link entry. As will ESV Karts if I didn't already mention that. So, big interesting things to consider for this. There is going to be rain in this stint. It's not heavy rain, this is under the light rain circumstances, but that's going to make things a little bit easier for those of us who are on the outside looking in to follow. Rain means that you're going to be using the rain tires. The big thing to consider is that in this game, there are several different stages of rain if you're not already familiar. You have the drizzle settings, you have overcast wet, which is really just dry conditions with a very slightly damp track. It doesn't really impact your lap times whatsoever. Then you have the drizzle settings. Drizzles is kind of right on the edge, depending on the car and depending on yourself. You can run dry tires in a drizzle circumstances and have times equal to wet tires or faster. But then you get light rain, and light rain is where you start having to run the wet weather tires. If someone is able to pull off a run with no wet weather tires in the light rain circumstances, I'd be impressed. But generally speaking, at light rain, you need to run wet tires. Same with medium rain, heavy rain, and the thunderstorm and rainstorm circumstances. We are looking at a race here that is going to be running under the light rain conditions. This means that everyone's going to be running the wet weather tires. So tire strategy is going to be very flat across the majority of the field. With that said, it also is going to open up a lot more when it comes to getting an idea as to how the teams set up their cars and how the drivers drive their cars. All these cars are front-wheel drive machines. All front-wheel drive cars, typically you want to max out the front downforce, because higher front downforce usually means that in a front-wheel drive car you're going to be getting maximum traction, whether it's in a straight line or in a corner. But with that said, there will still be the temptation to reduce the front downforce to try and increase your straight line speed. In the rain, that's just not going to be a great idea. I'm not saying it's a horrible option, but it's usually not a great idea because you want the downforce to try and force more of your tire onto the pavement so you can get maximum traction. So keep that in mind that if we see drivers burning through their tires significantly faster than everyone else, there may be a chance that they are running a lower downforce setting just to try and make up straight line speed time, but they may be tuning their tires up more. There could be other reasons, but that is usually the primary thing. But with everyone going to be running wet weather tires, everyone in front wheel drive cars, I imagine that we're going to see everyone relatively close when it comes to tire life. Spa, if you are not aware, is a absolutely gigantic racetrack. It is very big all the way around here at this circuit. So what you're going to be looking at is a scenario where drivers who are really good at preserving their tire life are not going to have any tire fall off. But drivers who are really chewing through their tires may be dealing with some significant tire fall off at the very end of their runs. When they go ahead and jump into the pit lane, you are likely going to be seeing them bleeding off time and absolutely hurting the final few corners. And considering that Sector 3 is a top speed section, a high speed section with a few really technical corners, that could end up having massive knock-on effects here. So keep that in mind as well. You need to make sure that your tires don't just last, but they last without significant fall off near the end here. With all that said, another thing to consider is that while the Link & Co. entries have been, by numbers, the dominant entry, as of now, it is the MG of F1R Eclipse that is going to be starting first. It is the only non-Link & Co. car that is going to be starting in the top 5 positions here. So, get ready for that. Again, rainy conditions is light rain. The other thing to consider is that in the light rain, you're still going to be wearing through your wet weather tires relatively quickly. If it was heavy rain, your tires would go a lot longer because you're not taking as much speed through the corners, and the track temperatures will be so cold that you're not really burning up the tires. In light rain, you're still going to be taking a lot more speed mid-corner. The track temperatures are going to be warmer, so you will be seeing some significant tire fall off. It's still like a traditional TORA Enduro. Everyone still stops with 20 minutes left on the clock. It is a 2 hour on the clock, but it's really an hour and 40 minutes of racing. Everyone stops at the 20-minute mark, and then distances are recorded. I believe if the information I got was correct, we are still looking at 4 mandatory stops in the run. If that is wrong, I will correct that a little bit later. You will be looking at 4 mandatory stops throughout the run. And you will be looking at a scenario where you are not allowed to make your last mandatory stops in the last 10 minutes of the event. So we see F1R Eclipse leading the field, and we will see them start to accelerate once they get up the top of Al Rouge and Radion. 18 cars taking the field here, and it's F1R Eclipse. And we are underway, it seems, before we even get to the Al Rouge and Radion corners, and immediately we're seeing a fight between ESV drivers in the upper midfield, and it looks like it is Karts that has ended up ahead of Pav. Pav is now under threat from TNR Skitty and ZR Ruiz Racer. Ruiz Racer is going to look to the inside. He wants to make it 3 wide as they come down the Camel straightaway. He's not quite all the way alongside yet. He may have to back out. Yes, he will back out early before they get to the braking zone. It is 2x2 here in the upper midfield, and for the moment it is ESV Pav who gets a little bit of a touch from the Arma car behind, and for the moment ESV Pav holds station, putting himself just ahead of the Sephiroth car. Now they come and start winding downhill throughout the majority of Sector 2. Sector 2 is very technical, a lot slower. Almost all of it is downhill. This is going to be where the real handling characteristics of the car will really come into play. But at the front, it is F1R Eclipse who is scooted away from Dex Cocados. And for those of you who just came from watching the Stint 2 on the main TORA channel just a few minutes ago, this car had a great result in Stint 1, but in Stint 2, they had a horrible strategy, burned up all their tires. They were at 95% tire wear at the very end of Stint 2, and hemorrhaged a lot of distance and a lot of positions at the end. So Dex Cocados, he started up near the front. He needs to dig deep now and open up as big of a gap as possible to try and make up for the team's strategy kerfuffle at the end of Stint 2. But this is Stint 3, entirely different scenario. We have a wet track. Everything's going to be a lot more up in the air looking here. AFMG Sam has had a slide all the way to the rear parts of the field back there with Berlude and F1R Legrect. That is a interesting name. I do apologize if I'm botching that. But as we see AFMG Sam under attack now from Bitume and Legrect, and it looks like Legrect is going to be able to sneak by Sam for a moment, or not quite. It's still very chaotic here at the very back of the field. We've not even completed a full lap, and the back of the grid still has not really cycled and figured their positioning out. Meanwhile, a little bit more in the midfield, this is a fight between Jay Caesar and CH Racing right now. Jay Caesar, I do want to go ahead and say thank you to him. He was the man who was willing to help set up the lobby for this stint, so we do want to say thank you for him for jumping in and doing that. It is usually those kind of drivers who help let these TORA events go underway. There are side-by-sides that go through the turn 1 hairpin. Virtuoso is still there on the outside, and now he falls in line behind Jay Caesar as they head downhill and into Al Rouge and Radion. This will be the first time that they're going to go through Al Rouge and Radion at full speed here. Full racing speed. A big twitch there by Virtuoso. He's going to lose a big chunk of time there. Jay Caesar does all he can to try and stay on the circuit, and there's a fight behind them now between CH Racing 88 and EBT Big Cry, and it looks like, for the moment, it's going to be that Simpson-sponsored car that's going to slip just ahead of CH Racing for the moment, as Haya Cranky and Dex X Donnie have their own little fight. But at the head of the field, look at this. ESV Karts has already made his way up into the 3rd position, and now he dives to the inside of Dex Kokados. He wants to make a fight for a second. He puts the bumper to him. He gets Chaos all sorts of sideways. Chaos trapped on the extreme outside. He's got to lose 1 position. Might even lose 2 positions now as it comes down to the no-name corner. Contact. The car on the outside has nowhere to go. Chaos is going to hold on position, and Wara now falls behind ESV Pav. So the ESV team did not start right at the front, but they are moving their way slowly up through the field right now. Chaos now slips to 3rd position behind Karts. Eclipse has opened up a bit of a gap on the rest of the field, but now Karts does not have to worry about fighting his way through the field. Will Karts be able to run down Eclipse at the head of this grid? That is going to be the big question. Wara holding station behind ESV Pod for the moment. Big slide there by ESV Pod at the bottom of the circuit, at the bottom of the hill. It brings Wara right back underneath them. Looks to the inside. Can't get alongside though, and now they start to open up. It's gonna be high-speed corners and high-speed straights for the next little bit. Everyone runs a little bit wide onto that green AstroTurf and just past, well, not try AstroTurf, but the green painted section of the circuit just past the rumble strip. And now powers down through the high-speed left-hand bend. These cars do not have enough downforce to easily take that flat out. So it gives a potential for a possible overtaking opportunity if you are brave, going down into the bus stop chicane, the final chicane on the track. But for the moment, Wara seems confident that Chaos puts the bumper to Karts there, but in the process, he just holds himself up and gives a shot for both ESV Pav and Indio Wara to make something happen. And there we go. Now ESV drivers look like they're going to be 1-2 as they come out of the turn 1 hairpin. Karts and Pav, 2nd and 3rd on circuit now, and Wara now puts the pressure to Chaos. Chaos trapped on the outside, can't do anything with Wara there on the inside, and they are side by side. One of them is going to have to pull out as they come down into the Al Rouge and Radion corners. It looks like it's going to be Wara who's going to be a little bit more reserved for now, and Chaos is going to use that to really open up. He's going to try and get a draft off of Pav ahead. He wants to take the fight back to the ESV duo ahead. He may have qualified ahead of this duo, but right now Karts and Pav are destroying the Dex team. Well, destroying might be a bit much to say, but right now they are dominating the Dex entry of Chaos right now. Chaos desperately trying to figure out a way back to them. He has used the draft. He has gotten back to ESV Pav's rear wing, and now the field begins to snake downhill once again. But while this is all happening, F1R Eclipse has opened up a very significant gap on the rest of the field right now. And while it may have been that in qualifying, or maybe not necessarily qualifying, but in the start in order, it was a bunch of MG, it was a bunch of Lincoln Co's at the head. It is Eclipse at the front, who is not in the Lincoln Co car, that is just pulling away right now. Chaos runs right in the draft of ESV Karts, but does he have enough car under him or enough tire under him to make the fight? Karts stepped wide. Karts stepped wide in the double downhill corner here. That's going to let Pav get alongside. Karts has the inside. Pav has the outside. They're going to be neck and neck. Someone has to back out coming into the corner, and it will be Pav who backs out of it. So Karts holds on to second, but there is a bit of fighting here in the ESV paradise now as Karts has to deal with Pav, putting incredible pressure there right behind him. And are they on wet? The assumption is that yes, in the light rain conditions, we are assuming that everyone on the field is running the wet weather tires through the entire event. There is no anticipated weather changes. It's going to be light rain all the way through, and we are anticipating that everyone will be running the wet weather tires from start to end here. Karts continues to hold station over Pav, and despite the two of them getting into a bit of a side-by-side scuffle at the bottom of Sector 2, they have still opened up the gap between themselves and Chaos. It seems to me that when it comes down to it, Chaos has nothing compared to what this ESV duo can do. But do the ESV drivers have anything for F1R Eclipse at the head of the field? They're doing everything they can to try and straight line out those final two corners, the chicane here at Spa, and now they come onto the start-finish straightaway once more. And Karts seems to have just a little bit better run through here, a little bit better power application, a little bit better corner run. We can't really tell right now. We'll probably get a better idea as this race goes on. But Pav is able to close the gap back down on Karts as they go down the straightaway and under braking going into the hairpin and then coming back out of the hairpin. It seems like Karts is able to open up the gap on Pav. So Pav might be a little bit better in straightaways. Pav might be a little bit better under braking, but it does seem like Karts is better in the most important parts of a circuit where it comes to driver-on-driver battle, and that is beating other drivers on the exit of corners right now. All right, down the Campbell straightaway once more. Codcast is pulled up behind ESV Pav once more, but Pav is pulling up on Karts. Is Pav going to look to the inside? He's going to try and make something happen on ESV Karts here. He looks to the inside, but I think he only pulls out just to try and get some fresh air on the nose of that car, give him some good braking, but that's compromised his line. And all of a sudden, Codcast is right behind ESV Pav all over again. Just about nose to tail between the two of them, but now they're in Sector 2, and this is where Codcast typically ends up bleeding off time as it goes on. So the field continues to run downhill now. F1 Eclipse seems to be slowly pulling away. Karts does not seem to be absolutely perfect right now. He keeps letting himself be attacked by Pav, and likewise, Pav keeps getting attacked by Codcast. But second, third, and fourth have pulled away from the rest of the field. Look at this, 3 wide here between Rouge Racer, Skitty, and Wara. Someone has to back out of it. Only one of them are going to back out of it. They're still side by side. One of the drivers is pushed way to the outside. There's 3 wide again, and now they come to the bottom of the hill. The bottom of Sector 2, there's still 3 wide. 2 of these guys have to back out. You don't want to be side by side in these corners, and no one's backing out. They're door baiting. They're all over each other right now. Wara, Rouge Racer, still going door to door, and finally, Wara ends up just ahead of Rouge Racer. Cuts down, tries to cut down in front of Rouge Racer, barely able to do it. It is 5 cars, nose to tail through the entirety of this group. And for the moment, it looks like Wara in 5th place has it, but Rouge Racer is right behind, followed by Dex Twilight, TNR Skitty, and VER Dr. Ice. And we ride aboard Dr. Ice as this field of 5 cars heads down into this high-speed left-hand corner here in Sector 3. Is anyone able to take it flat? It's really difficult, but it seems like it might just barely be possible. There's a little bit of a fight in the midfield here, but there's almost no room for anyone to go right now in Sector 3 because everyone's trying to maximize their straight line speed. Now they come through the chicane once more, onto the start-finish straightaway once again. For the moment, it is still Wara who holds the position, followed by Rouge Racer, Twilight, Skitty, and Dr. Ice, who we ride on board right now, coming down into the hairpin. This is going to be a big possible overtaking opportunity, and there's the move farther up. You see that Rouge Racer dives to the inside, gets Wara a little bit sideways. They're side by side there up the road for 5th position now. You're going to see the field. There's 2nd, 3rd, and 4th going through Al Rouge and Radion, but here's what we really wanted to see. Look at this mess as they go up through Al Rouge and Radion. But it looks like Skitty and Dr. Ice are falling off a bit from Wara Rouge Racer right now. And here we go. Rouge Racer tries to put tires under the dirt, trying to get alongside. Finally, he's able to pull alongside, but it's too late in the Campbell straightaway. He's got to lunge deep. He lunges really deep. He's got to run himself off the ideal line. He's got to run Wara a little bit wide. And in the process, here comes Dex Twilight. Dex Twilight around the extreme outside. Got alongside, made 3 wide. Backs down. He's going to try and cross over 2 cars. There's no room. These FIA Grade 1 European tracks are not wide enough to make that kind of move. But boy, you can't say he's not trying. And this 5-car battle continues as Skitty and Dr. Ice get really physical farther back there. Wara holds station for the moment, though. Riding off the back of India Wara's car as he looks behind at Rouge Racer, who would be followed by Twilight, then Skitty, then Dr. Ice. But it does seem like Dr. Ice is having a little bit of trouble keeping up. It just seems like it's Wara, Rouge Racer, and Twilight who seem to be the cut above the other drivers here. But mind you, if these 3 keep fighting, it's going to keep the entirety of the field from 5th, potentially all the way back to 18th, all tucked up on top of each other. Not really been any more big changes near the head of the field, but Wara gets a tire under the dirt, and now coming outside is Rouge Racer. Rouge Racer tries to make something happen, can't get alongside, it seems. But he got right back there. The fight is still on for 5th position on circuit. For the moment, India Wara holds on to the 5th spot. Rouge Racer is right there, but Rouge Racer needs Wara to make some more mistakes and needs him to make mistakes in areas where Rouge Racer can pull up alongside, going into the braking zone, and really try to squeeze down and deny Wara the ideal line in the apex of these corners. It came closest a few corners ago, but it wasn't close enough. Now here comes Rouge Racer. He's going to go for a big dive to the inside. Big lunge. He gets the car all the way ahead, and Rouge Racer goes up into 5th. And now here comes Dex Twilight. Twilight puts the bumper twice to that Lincoln Co machine, but for now, as they come onto the start-finish straightaway, India Wara holds on to 6th position over Dex Twilight, and now Wara has to see if he can do something back against Rouge Racer. And you can see that big line of cars starting to form behind these three. These three keep fighting back and forth. And you saw right there, Rouge Racer left the inside line open. Here comes Enduro War. They're going to be side by side as they head downhill once again. You don't want to be side by side through Alice and Radion. Who's going to back out? It will be Rouge Racer who backs out. They all go nose to tail through there. Rouge Racer touches the infield grass just a little bit. All three cars taking slightly different exit lines as they come out of Radion. And now onto the Camel Straight once again. India War is ahead. Rouge Racer has a line though. He's got to look to the inside. This move worked for him earlier. Can he make it work for him again? Neck and neck. He's got the nose ahead. Heavy into the brakes this time. And he will clear the Lincoln Co. Team Doodle car this time. Dex Twilight is right there looking to make something happen, but can't seem to do it. It does seem to me like Dex Twilight is slower in lap time compared to what War and Rouge Racer are able to do. However, Rouge Racer and War are just going to be a lot more mistake prone than Dex Twilight, and that is the main reason why Dex Twilight continues to be right here in the middle of this fight. And look who's back. TNR Skitty is back into this fight. So is VER Dr. Ice, and we are back to having a 5-car train here for this position for 5th spot on circuit. Again, overall, you have to remember that traditionally in these tour events it's all about overall distance that matters. But this event has rain in it. This stint along with stint 4 both will have rain. Overall distance, while important, won't be as big here because there's not as much distance to lose. You can really get your elbows out, and mathematically speaking, not lose nearly as much percentage-wise in distance than you would on a dry circuit. This is probably going to be the best chance you're going to see for proper driver-to-driver fighting for position here. And there he goes off again. That's the second time we've seen Wara go wide in those corners. And this time Wara loses the position as Skitty and Dex Twilight. So now India Wara, who was 5th just a few laps ago, has fallen back to 8th on the circuit. All right, real quickly, let's go ahead and look at the head of the field. This is F1R Eclipse. As we look real quickly at their tire life, they're at 56% on the tires right now. ESV Karts, who runs second at the moment, is running with 55%, so a little bit better tire management from Karts. This is Pav, who is just behind. He is at 55%. Then you have Dex Cod Chaos, and Cod Chaos, who is 4th right now, is at 55% as well. Then you get Rouge Racer, who is leading this big pack of cars. One of them is shot off. He's at 56. Who was it that pitted there? It looks like it was TNR Skitty. We're going to knock out a Twitch mandated ad break, and we'll be back shortly after that. I do apologize. I have had a bit of a cough that I've been trying to my best to make sure you guys don't hear in the broadcast. Before we break away, though, I do want to go ahead and take a look at TNR Skitty. How many drivers is TNR Skitty going to overtake as Skitty went ahead and jumped into the pit lane a little bit early? He's going to go all the way up into 5th, according to the ticker. But is he going to be able to move and clear of everyone else? Dex Twilight just now comes out of pit lane. Yeah, Skitty is well ahead of Dex Twilight. All right, we will be back momentarily here at Spa-Francorchamps to really show you how the field is shaken up after this first round of pit stops here in the rain. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll welcome you back here to Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. We are a little bit more than 20 minutes in to Stint 3 here in these wet weather conditions. TNR Skitty has moved out to a commanding control on fifth place on the track. However, it is off of strategy. He elected to pit an entire lap earlier than this glut of cars behind, which is currently being led by Dex Twilight. Skitty has the on-track advantage now, but he is going to be worse off on tires for several more laps, and the rest of these cars behind may have a chance to gradually run him down as this goes on. So that will be the interesting thing to keep an eye on. The other thing to keep an eye on will be NDL Wara. Wara was at the head of this big glut of cars for a long time, but eventually finally went ahead and put some big pressure on other drivers and got pressure put on by other drivers, ended up hemorrhaging time, went off circuit at least twice and fell down to about 9th position. He is back to fighting with Rouge Racer as they come to the top of Al Rouge and Radion and down the Camel straightaway once again. But India Wara has shown great strength early on in the tire life, but as it goes on, his car seems to be falling off more than the other drivers here on track. We're going to keep an eye on India Wara, see if maybe they can make a turnaround. But right now, in the changes on circuit, you can see where everyone's initial starting position was when this event began and where they all are now. Interesting, the driver who has made up the most positions since the start has been F1R Legrecht, who started dead last, was stuck at the very back of the field very early on, but he has gradually made his way up through the field. He has gotten up to 10th. He's actually fought as high as the 8th position, but after pit stops, he's kind of stabilized right now in the 10th position. But Legrecht could be a silent sleeper hit for someone to really watch in this stint. While the team isn't running really high up in the overall distance, he seems to really be making something work by riding this really particularly wide line on that little straightaway just before the no-name corner and the double downhill left-hander. And I have to wonder, are there other places on track where Legrecht are doing similar things to try and make stuff happen? But right now, the real other thing of note is that the ESV duo of Karts and Pob, they have stabilized. They are not actively fighting with each other on track anymore, but they are not closing in on your leader, F1R Eclipse. The F1R team was at the head of the field at the start of this Stint, and they have done nothing but open up the gap. Dex Codcast was second, but could not keep Karts and Pop behind, and as this has gone on, Codcast has slowly been hemorrhaging time. I don't think he's going to be caught by TNR Skitty or that big glut of cars behind on this stint of tires, but he might be caught on the following round of tires. But right now, Skitty is 5th, trying to stay ahead of a fight between TBR Virtuoso and Dex Twilight, as Virtuoso in that T-Rex painted machine has just briefly slipped ahead. I'm going to assume that's a T-Rex. It's generic enough to look like a generic interpretation of a T-Rex. But TBR Virtuoso has gone ahead and slipped by Dex Twilight just for the moment and moved up into the 6th position. Mind you, that is TBR, not TNR. So Virtuoso is not contracted to the same TORA team that Skitty is contracted to. Now we see Dex Twilight trying to fight back on the inside. However, being on the outside on the exit of the hairpin means that you're going to have more time to get traction of the tires, so the straight line speed advantage lets Virtuoso hold station over Dex Twilight as this fight for 6th comes to the top of Al Rouge, comes out of Radion, and onto the Camel Straight once again. That is Indiel, Wara, and Ruiz Racer are just close enough to get the draft, but not close enough to immediately make a fight out of it. Now Dex Twilight is going to look to the inside of TBR Virtuoso. They're going to be side by side as they come to the end of the Camel Straightaway. Who goes deeper under braking? And it will be Virtuoso, but boy, Virtuoso missed the ideal braking spot. He's going to keep Dex's car right alongside the Dex car, side by side. He's on the inside in the following corner. We see Virtuoso on the outside, but Dex Twilight's still there. Does he go deep into the following corner? He does. They make just a little bit of contact right on the corner panel. Keeps Virtuoso trapped on the outside. Can he pass him? I don't think it's complete yet. No, it's not complete yet. And now we see Virtuoso back on the inside. Here comes Wara. Wara's going to try and make it 3 wide. Now, no room. He falls back into 8th position. Right on board as he watches Virtuoso and Twilight go neck and neck at it as they head into the double downhill. Now he gets to the inside of the Dex Twilight machine. Wara trying to move back to the position that he feels he should rightfully be in. But still, that Dex machine is on his inside. They're going to be side by side as they head down into the braking zone. Wara is going to back out real early, and Dex Twilight puts the bumper to Virtuoso all over again. Slides backwards. Both of them are holding each other up so much. Now Wara's going to come back. Can Wara clear the Dex car this time? I think he will. No! Dex goes really deep in, and Dex Twilight is still there on the inside of Indiel Wara, still there on top of him. 4 cars all to blanket on top of them. This might be what Virtuoso needs, and Wara goes wide, drops a tire into the dirt, slides off circuit. He's got to fall all the way out of the top 10, all the way to 12th. And this seems to be Indiel Wara's biggest problem. Wara is able to get right there and put the elbows into other people's ribs. But the problem is that Wara doesn't seem to know when to stop, and he keeps sliding off circuit every time he does that, and ends up sliding off circuit. And now Indiel Wara is going to fall back to the 12th position and briefly lose touch of the drivers ahead. And now it is TBR Virtuoso who is starting to break away from this pack as Dex Twilight is in a fight with Ruiz Racer. And we saw earlier on the earlier run on the tires, we saw that Twilight was able, it was Ruiz Racer who was able to get very aggressive, but wasn't able to really make up a whole lot of time on track. And look at that run! That was Legrex who came up right in the middle of a 3-wide fight going in to the hairpin, and now he moves up into 8th. And Legrex has now gone from 18th to 8th, and he's not done yet. Now he's the one who's going to start putting pressure on Dex Twilight. Just touches the tires in the dirt there just a little bit. He's right there in Twilight's draft. Does he have what it takes to make a big dive? I don't think he's close enough. Not this time. Ruiz Racer is closing in on Legrek. Pulls up right behind the rear wing. Does he look to the inside? No, not this time. Legrek looks to the inside, but he's just trying to get clean air on the front nose of that car. And for the moment, Dex Twilight holds on to 7th. Legrek's going to hold on to 8th, and Ruiz Racer is going to be 9th. But here's the interesting thing to consider. TBR Virtuoso has now broken away from that big fight behind, and now might be the best chance he'll have to try and run down TNR Skitty. Remember, Skitty is on tires that are worse because Skitty went ahead and pitted a lap earlier than everyone else right now. Dex Twilight holding station in 7th right now, trying to keep Legrek right behind. And all the while, TBR Virtuoso is starting to scoot away just a little bit. Ruiz Racer is hanging out there, but it looks like for the moment, this big glut of cars is finally starting to spread apart into various different strats here. And now we see Dex Twilight and Legrek get briefly into a little bit of a spat, but it does seem like Twilight has good enough control over the corners, but he's wide! Boy, was he riding! That's gonna let leg wreck by! What happened to Twilight? Why did he go so wide there? Doesn't look like his tires are particularly cooked, but he went incredibly wide there and let leg wreck go right by. Now Twilight's gonna try and fight back, but he's gonna be trapped on the outside as they come into this high-speed left-hand corner. You don't want to be side-by-side through here. You run the risk of running too wide and potentially getting a post-race distance penalty, or time penalty in this case. He's still there though. Twilight's putting the pressure on leg wreck. Rouge Racer is right there as well. Leg wrecked, I think he's gonna clear him. And yes, leg wrecked is still clear of Dex Twilight. So leg wrecked has done an incredible 18th to 7th place run in this event. I cannot believe what we're seeing. And now you have to wonder, does leg wrecked have what it takes to run down Virtuoso and Skitty? What about Cod Chaos? Could he catch Cod Chaos? Reminder, Skitty is on tires that are older than everyone else around him, and we don't really know what Virtuoso's pace is over a full tire run compared to what Leg Wrecked has done. Leg Wrecked has done the majority of these overtakes mano y mano on track. It's not just a matter of, oh, I've beaten someone on pit stop strategy. Leg Wrecked has been fighting elbows out for every single one of these positions, and that's Rouge Racer. Rouge Racer has had an incident at the top of the hill. And he's not the only one. That is Twilight, I believe. So Rouge Racer, his car is destroyed. And I believe that's Dex Twilight, whose car is destroyed as well. There in Radion. And everything on that car, every single piece of that car, except for the left rear spring and brake, is destroyed. Dex Twilight is stuck. Rouge Racer is creeping at an incredibly slow rate down the Camel straightaway now. And two drivers who were fighting in the top 10 position for so long this race have now been involved in an accident in the Al Rouge and Radion corners, and this is going to shut them to the back of the grid. It's going to compromise their runs overall. And for Dex Twilight, who does not seem to be moving whatsoever, is he going to pull the car? Is he going to wait for someone else to maybe try and help him move the car? Or are they going to have to pull the car after this incredible accident? Sadly, we did not catch the accident on stream. We were looking just a little bit ahead of where the accident happened, so we did not catch it. One driver that does help out, though, is Dr. Ice, as now the track is kind of cleared out in front of Dr. Ice. He will now get a chance to run some laps in clean air, even though his tires are just about near the end. Same thing for NDL Wara, who's going to be in a similar position, doesn't have to worry about drivers. He is actively fighting with on track and just turn some clean laps. Meanwhile, Leg Wrecked has already caught TBR Virtuoso. It took a lot less time for Leg Wrecked to catch Virtuoso than we anticipated, but he has done it. Here comes Leg Wrecked on Virtuoso for 6th position. Leg Wrecked is on one heck of a drive today. What can he do? It looks like around the outside, he's going to clear him in a straight line. Leg Wrecked clears Virtuoso in a straight line. That's not even the longest straight on the track, but he clears him in a straight line. And now, Leg Wrecked's next focus will be on TNR Skitty, who is pitting now. Remember, TNR Skitty is pitting a little bit earlier than most of the rest of the drivers, and now we see Virtuoso pitting with Skitty. So Virtuoso is now going to go ahead and pit a lap earlier like what Skitty did. Maybe Virtuoso was hoping that 3 laps in clean air will work out for him. Also, EBT Big Cry is going ahead and pit. We're going to likely see some more drivers farther back in the field who made pit stops a lap earlier go ahead and pit this time as well now. But Leg Wrecked now has to look ahead to Cod Chaos, and remember, he is still focusing on trying to catch TNR Skitty on lap times right now. Meanwhile, in the top 3, it is ESP Pov, who runs in 3rd, in the wheelhouse, in the tire tracks, in the draft, whatever you want to call it, but he is running right behind the other driver in the ESP team, the ESP kart entry. They are just about nose to tail, but close enough that Pov is not actively compromising kart's line. And then way out ahead from the rest of the field is F1R Eclipse with a massive gap on the rest of the grid. Cod Chaos, who started 2nd, has slipped back to 4th, and Dex Twilight has finally withdrawn from the event. We're going to try and reach out to Dex Twilight, and we're going to also try and knock out a Twitch-mandated ad break. We'll be back shortly here, hopefully to catch the rest of the field making their next round of pit stops here at Spa-Francorchamps. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Spa-Francorchamps. We anticipated that a lot of drivers would be paying this time by, but no, of the leaders is only Karts and Pav, and everyone else has stayed out. What does this mean? Well, all of a sudden, now we could be looking at Karts and Pav having to deal with traffic. This could compromise their run just a bit. Also, for some reason, Pav seemed to take a little bit less time than Karts in the pit box, so now he is right under the rear wing of his teammate, going to give his teammate a little bit of aero wash, forward-focusing aero wash as they go through Alvarez and Radion. No big issue for Karts right now, but still, these two may have to deal with a little bit of traffic ahead in the form of VER's Dr. Ice, who currently runs in 5th position on track. COD Chaos has also elected to stay out a little bit longer, and so has F1R Eclipse. So these drivers might be looking at tire life up in the 63% range already, 61%. For F1R Eclipse. For Dex COD Chaos, you look at his tires, he had at 60, no, he's not at 60% yet. COD Chaos is actually better on his tires, it seems, than F1R Eclipse. So if COD Chaos is able to make his tires go farther than Eclipse, but he doesn't have the tire life to do anything about it, this might be what he needs to do. COD Chaos may need to figure out ways to try and stay out one lap longer than Eclipse and maybe put a little bit less time in the car here and there to make something out of it. Other thing to really take note of will be the drivers who went ahead and pitted early. This is TNR Skitty, who is one of those drivers who is on a completely alternate strategy. He pitted way earlier than other drivers in Stint 1. He pitted earlier here, well, Stint 1, I mean Tire Stint 1. He did the same in Stint 2. Now he's going to be 2 laps earlier than a lot of the other drivers on circuit. Again, everyone is on wet weather tires, but it seems like different drivers have different confidence levels on how far they want to push these tires. Some of them are only pushing them about 18 minutes. Others seem to be pushing a little bit closer to the 22 to 23 minute range. A lap here in these conditions is about 2 minutes and 30 seconds here. And here we are. F1R Eclipse is coming to the pits. Now we know that Eclipse is going to hold on to the lead without any question. The question is going to be about COD Chaos, who is about to pit this time. His tires are in the 63% range right now. And he's going to come in, he's going to come out. We anticipate behind Karts and Pav, but how far behind? Will staying out an extra lap benefit COD Chaos at all when they are dealing with Karts and Pav? And here's the big thing. Karts and Pav have to deal with VER Dr. Ice, but Dr. Ice holds the extreme inside line. He's not going to hold up the ESV drivers whatsoever. So in the end, there is no traffic issue for the ESV duo. Your leader, F1R Eclipse, is already down into the hairpin, so he will easily maintain his lead over Karts and Pav. So it looks like overall, on track at the moment, Karts and Pav will maintain second and third, but COD Chaos will now have a 1-lap tire advantage over Karts and Pav for this next tire stint. COD Chaos is in the pit right now. So is Legrect, Wara, and Dr. Ice. What is TNR Skitty going to be? Again, Skitty has been pitting now 2 laps ahead of these other drivers. Where is he going to end up in relation to all of them? Well, Skitty is still going to be in 5th position. He is going to be ahead of TBR Virtuoso and Legrect by the looks of it, but not by much. Here is Legrect. Legrect is going to be just ahead of Virtuoso. He's trying to get his tires up to temperature right now. His tires are cold, and he's going to go through the most difficult corners of the circuit with cold tires. He needs to get these up to temperature now, so he's not under threat from Virtuoso. He's a little bit sideways. Virtuoso is digging. Legrect is now under threat from Virtuoso. Virtuoso on hot tires. Legrect's tires still are not quite up to temp. They won't be up to temp until he gets hard under the brakes at the end of the Cowell straightaway. Here goes Virtuoso. He's going to go around the outside, and it looks like Virtuoso is going to just clear Legrect. So Virtuoso goes back in the 6th position. Here comes Legrect. He looks to the inside, is not going to commit to the move. Virtuoso holds on to 6th for a moment, and Legrect will be 7th at the moment. Most of the other positions on track seems to stabilize, although there is, gradually as this is going on, a potential possibility that COD Chaos might be caught by Skitty or Virtuoso or Legrect, depending on how the rest of this goes. I do want to also go ahead and talk about one other driver, and that is ZR Ruiz Racer. Ruiz Racer was involved in that big accident at the top of Al Rouge with Dex Twilight. But unlike Twilight, Ruiz Racer was able to keep just enough momentum in the car to creep around the entire circuit. He went ahead and made a pit stop, and made it roughly at the time that he would have made a pit stop anyway. So while Ruiz Racer is way behind in overall distance because of that accident, he is not knocked off sequence. So Ruiz Racer may still have a chance to neutralize some of the time loss, especially because it looks like he'll likely be turning laps in clean air for most of the rest of this run. So for those of you who are focusing on the Zephyrus entry by ZR Ruiz Racer, while it's not a great stint, all is not completely lost for this entry yet. Meanwhile, Legrect is fighting with Virtuoso, and he's gotten back by Virtuoso here at the bottom of Sector 2. I should not have turned away. I apologize for that. But now we have Legrecht leading Virtuoso on circuit. Legrecht started last of these 18 drivers, but every single position he has made on track has not been just off of strategy differential. He has been roughly on the same strategy as other drivers. Virtuoso had a big slide out of the rear of the car there, going through that high-speed left-hander. But Legrecht, every single position he has made has been on merit, on track. He has fought his way up into the 6th position, and we have to seriously ask, is F1R Legrecht going to be able to take 5th from Skiddy? Does he have what it takes to maybe even take 4th from COD Chaos? Legrecht pitted 2 laps later than TNR Skiddy on the most recent round of tires and fuel stop. With that in mind, that means that Legrecht will have a tire advantage over Skiddy. Skiddy has a significant track position advantage right now, though. But Legrecht, if he can break away from Virtuoso, not have to deal with Virtuoso pressuring him at all, Legrecht might make something happen. Pav and Karts are in a little bit of a fight. There's a fight in the ESV camp here in the podium position, and Pav has moved ahead of Karts, going down the Camel straightaway. What happened to Karts? Did Karts have a bad run through Aluge and Radion, and Pav capitalize and move ahead to try and take over 2nd position? There is not just complacency in the ESV camp. It does seem like when it comes down to it, this may not be a case of Team A and Team B, Driver A and Driver B, like we would normally see. It seems like there is a little bit of fighting within the ESV camp, and ESV Pav has moved his way ahead of Karts. But for the moment, we've been talking about Legrecht, and he has been the driver who has made more position advancements than anyone else in the field. Now, granted, some of it is off the back of Rouge Racer and Twilight having crashed, but he was already past those 2 drivers when they had their accident. He would be at about this position on track on merit anyway. And while we talk about him, we have to talk about one other driver. India Wara is just having an absolute nightmare of a time. Wara seems to be very fighty, very punchy, and that seems to be a problem. Wara doesn't seem to be able to get a good idea as to when to stop, when to pull back, and just let things fall. And we have seen multiple times Wara push the car too far, going side by side in the corners that you don't want to be side by side on, and they have slid off, and it just seems to keep compromising Wara. And they are now back here in the 9th position, dead on in the middle of the field right now. We anticipate a bear from the NDL Team Doodles group. It's just not happened thus far for NDL Wara. He needs some big problems farther back. And then you have this little bit of a fight. We were talking about a big fight farther up in the grid earlier, but now it is different. It is a different ZR driver. It is ZR Haya Cranky who is holding up PTG J Caesar, Dex XD Donnie, EBT Big Cry, and Berulered Bitumi. I cannot say that name. I apologize for that. But we're right on board very briefly with Bitume at the back of this 5-car train. Right now, it's not super active when it comes to battling on circuit, as Bitume tries to put a little bit of pressure on that. I'm going to assume that's Hispanic. I could not see that long enough to see if it was Hispanic or if it was Portuguese, but Bitume is trying to put some pressure on the Hispanic Homer Simpson car of EPT Big Cry right now. But this is a 5-car field right now fighting for the 10th position on track as they come out of the chicane once more, and we'll see them rush down into the turn 1 hairpin again. That's Dr. Isamwara, who just went by, and here come Jay Caesar and Haya Cranky. They're side by side, and look at that, a little bit of a contact on the inside wall there by Haya Cranky, but he's got to slide off himself ahead of PTG Jay Caesar now. And now we look at what they're going to be doing as they come down into Al Rouge and Radion. No changes, not this time by the looks of it. But Haya Cranky is under threat from Caesar. Caesar under threat from Donnie. Donnie under threat from Big Cry. And it seems like Bitume is losing touch with these leaders just a little bit. Now we see Jay Caesar. He's going to pull to the inside, neck and neck, side by side for the 10th position. Jay Caesar gets a little bit squirrely under braking. He's going to try and go deep. Haya Cranky is still right there. Cranky is on the inside for the following corner. Now will Caesar lunge deep into the following corner? No, he backs out and brings Dex Donnie there. Now Donnie's under threat from Big Cry, and Big Cry gets by Donnie. Bitume is going to get by Donnie as well. Yes, Donnie is going to be trapped on the outside line in this big 180-degree near hairpin corner, and Donnie now falls all the way back to 14th on circuit here. And already Caesar is now under threat from that Simpsons machine of EBT Big Cry. no other real active fights on circuit outside of this one, as Karts has gotten back by Pav. But it seems like the ESV team has realized that there is no chance to catch Eclipse. It's just not going to happen. So after 45 minutes of running, it looks like the ESV drivers are back to fighting with each other, elbows out. And you have to wonder, between the ESV team, is one of them going to say, screw it, I want to pit a lap earlier? Or is one of them going to say, screw it, I want to pit a lap later? Or is one of them going to go ahead and say, I want to get off strategy, turn a lap in clean air, and try to open up? Because as it stands right now, both these drivers are kind of at an impasse. Pav is able to get by Karts, but can't seem to hold station ahead of Karts. Karts is able to stay ahead of Pav, but can't open the gap on Pav. As long as these two cars are this close, Pav is able to take advantage of the way that the Forza Aero works in this game. When you are within about 7/10 to 8/10 of a second of the car ahead of you at a speed of about 100 miles an hour or more, the game will put what is basically a artificial aero wash on the front nose of the car of the leader in a two-car pack like this. There is some reputation of that in reality that can sometimes happen in certain levels of cars, but typically on the rear wing. For some reason, Forza put it on the front nose of the car instead of the rear wing. Kind of a shame, but it's whatever. With that in mind, Karts is going to be dealing with this artificially induced aero wash on the nose of the car as long as Pav is right under him. That means that Karts is not going to be able to maximize what the car can actually do. Karts is going to want to run laps in clean air to get away from Pav. Likewise, I imagine that Pav probably feels the same. Pav probably feels that he is being held up a lot more in the corners than he wants to be. Both of these drivers, I think, are going to have to consider, when do they go ahead and decide to pit a lap earlier or a lap later to try and offset, turn a lap in clean air, and then try to beat them on that one lap in clean air so they can be ahead of the other driver. It would be a big, bold strategy, and typically the ESV team seems to have a really, really good grasp on how strategies play out. But in this scenario, I imagine that Karts and Pav are both going to end up eventually becoming desperate enough to run in clean air that we may see one of them get offset. And Karts is wide. Karts slides the rear of that car out and it brings Pav right behind him. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about when you'll have some aero wash coming from the car behind. Granted, I like how it's done in this game, but I feel like it should be done on the rear wing, not the front nose of the car. But that kind of keeps this fight a lot closer than one might normally expect it to be. And now they come through the high-speed sections of Sector 3 once again. Karts holding on. Pav continues to follow. And we'll see him go through this high-speed left-hander here. Pav has the bumper right to Karts. No big movement there, but you can see there's only about room for about a small notebook between the two of them. But Pav, very reserved. He's not going for any big crazy moves or big crazy dive bombs in the corners. He's just trying to take the corners a little bit more smoothly, a little bit more calmly, all while F1R Eclipse continues to maintain a gigantic gap over the rest of this field. For whatever reason, Eclipse is absolutely at home right now in these wet weather conditions. And TNR Skitty is making a pit stop. Once again, TNR Skitty continues to be one of the first drivers to go ahead and pit on nearly every single cycle. And this time, TBR Virtuoso is going to join Skitty coming in the pits. So Legrek, is he going to stay out for 2 more laps or is it going to be for 3 more laps? That's going to be the big question now between the two of them. Also, reminder, Legrek is slowly closing down on Dex COD Chaos. There may still be a fight for 4th between Legrek and COD Chaos. I don't imagine that Legrek has enough time to catch either of the ESV drivers unless they have an accident. But Legrek may legitimately be able to steal a respectable 4th place result. So it looks like Virtuoso, Big Cry are the drivers who join TNR Skitty after these pits are done. And TNR Skitty comes out of pit lane and he is already ahead of ZR, Haya Cranky, and PTGJ Caesar, and Berlula Bedtime. Reminder, these drivers behind, Cranky, Caesar, Bitume, they all pitted with Skitty on the very first run, but since then they have been pushing their tires gradually farther and farther than what Skitty has been as this goes on. So, real quickly for ZR Villa in the comments, I do want to go ahead and answer your question. I was not focused on comments, and I do apologize for that. But for ZR Ruiz Racer, real quick fill-in. For those of you who are not aware, Ruiz Racer was fighting with Dex Twilight for roughly 7th place on circuit. 7th place. For comparison, look on track, because I don't have the ability to show you time gaps. Look on track right now, that number 1 on the little map on the upper right side of the screen, that is where F1R Eclipse is right now. Where India War is right now in 7th, fighting with Dr. Ice, that is roughly the position that Ruiz Racer and Dex Twilight were fighting for. So about a quarter to a third of a lap behind the leader before their accident. Now, Ruiz Racer is about to go, or at risk of going a lap down, to F1R Eclipse. So Ruiz Racer has lost just about 2/3 of a lap, I'd say about 65% of a lap after his accident. However, Ruiz Racer is not massively off sequence when it comes to pit stop strategies, so we are not looking at Ruiz Racer getting knocked further behind by making an extra pit stop. It just looks like he is down a lot in distance, but his strategy is not completely miffed. And with Ruiz Racer running the majority of the rest of this race in clean air, we believe, we think that we will likely see Ruiz Racer pick up some decent distance, not enough to make up everything he lost, but he should be able to pick up some decent distance in clean air for the rest of this run. It's a bad time to be in that ZR Ruiz Racer's team. However, all is not lost yet. F1R Eclipse stays out a little longer, and once more, Karts and Pav pit at the same time. COD Chaos stays out a little longer, and so does F1R Legrect. The ESV drivers have been very, very conservative when it comes to when they want to pit. They have not been pushing their tire fall off to a ridiculous level. I don't think we've seen them hit the 60% mark yet, while Eclipse and COD Chaos have been pitting often enough that they will, well, they've been stayed out often enough that they have been pushing out to about the 60% mark. So Legrect now runs in 3rd position, but again, we're curious about Skitty. Skitty, who is currently set to be in the 5th spot on track, also fighting against Legrect, and Skitty versus Legrect is likely going to be the first time that Legrect may have to make an overtake, not on track mono-e-mono, but have to make the overtake by virtue of time differences when one driver's on older tires and one driver's on newer tires. Right now, Skitty is on the newer tires and Legrect is on the older tires, but Legrect keeps going way, way, way longer on the tire run than what Skitty is able to do. So while we are in the middle of this round of green flag stops right now, we're going to keep our focus on TNR Skitty, but we're going to knock out one of Twitch's mandated ad breaks. And when we come back, we should see the rest of the field making what will be the 3rd stop of this stint. Don't go away. We'll be back momentarily here at Spa-Francorchamps. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Spa-Francorchamps. It is Skitty versus Legrect, as Legrect has just come out of pit lane. He's got fresh tires, but they're cold. Skitty is on warm tires, but they're nice and warm, and he is by, and Skitty gets right back by Legrect just before they get to Al Rouge, and just before they come out of Radion. So Skitty is back ahead of Legrect. Legrect, though, is on nice fresh tires. He needs to get these tires nice and heated up. He'll likely get the tires nice and heated up there just as he comes down into the pit lane. And Villa is half a lap. It is not a lap and a half. It is just half a lap for Rua's racer. But anyways, back to this fight. Leg wreck goes deep. He puts the bumper to Skitty as they come to the end of the Camel straightaway. And now they come down into sector 2. Here comes leg wreck. He looks to the inside of Skitty. Skitty on the worn tires can't really seem to make anything of it. But he's on the outside. He's got to use the power and get just barely back ahead. But now leg wreck goes for a big dive in. He gets the nose that's long to the inside. And leg wreck shucks the door. Leg wreck has the door shut on him by Skitty. Skitty holds on to the 6th position just for the moment. Right now, Dr. Ice and Dex Podcast are still on track. Both of them have yet to make their 3rd stop. But this is the fight for what should be overall 5th position. Might even be 4th position depending on how this goes for COD Chaos. But as they come down the double left-hander here, you can see a lot of sliding there by Skitty. Here comes leg wreck. Leg wreck closing down Skitty as Skitty with the worn tires. Now has to deal with leg wreck, who is on nice, warmed-up, fresh tires. And now we see leg wreck trying to go the long way around. Now he's going to get the inside for the following corner, but the Armor car's got to fight back. Bumper to nose to nose. Even on the next straightaway, and now we see leg wreck trapped on the outside, Skitty on the inside. Now they're going to have a great run through there, but I think it's going to be leg wreck. Yes, leg wreck uses the acceleration on the outside. He's going to get ahead, and now leg wreck moves up into the 6th position on track. And we are anticipating that COD Chaos and Dr. Ice will be pitting on this circuit, so both of them will fall behind this duo. So it looks like leg wreck, I said earlier, I thought leg wreck was going to have to catch Skitty and pass up on lap time and not mano-y-mano. That is not how it's turned out. Leg wreck, every single overtake he has made as this event has gone on, has come down to 100% driver ability. And COD Chaos still has not pitted. His tires are at the 65% mark. What in the devil is the strategy in the Dex team? For those of you who did not see Stint 2 on the official TORA channel a little bit more than an hour ago, the other Dex driver in this very entrant, granted, that was on a dry track, tried to push their final round of tires way too far, and they threw away a top 5 result, and their tires were at 95% wear by the end. Excuse me. The Dex team in Stint 2 threw away a potential top 5 result with some horrible tire fell off. I believe it fell down to 9th in the end of Stint 2 with a 95% set of front tires, and now we're seeing COD Chaos doing the same thing, putting the tires to the same amount of extreme punishment again. Is there something wrong with the Dex strategy making? Have they completely biffed themselves, or is there something else that the Dex team is aware of here in the rainy conditions that those of us watching are not aware of? Is COD Chaos crazy and going to make something out of it, or is he crazy and going to throw away a potential top 4 result off these wild alternate strategies? We do not know yet. Here's something else to consider. Despite the fact that Karts and Pob are both an entire pit stop ahead of COD Chaos, so they basically made an entire stop, they're still just about to catch COD Chaos on the racetrack itself. So, yeah, I don't really feel like this is working out for COD Chaos to try and catch the ESV drivers, unless he is betting on making fewer pit stops over the course of the entire race compared to them. But as this is going on, we're not even a full hour through. We're only about halfway through the event. I imagine that most of these drivers are going to have to make about 5 pit stops over the course of this rainy circumstances, just because the track is not wet enough to really save tire life here. I imagine everyone's going to have to make 5 stops unless COD Chaos thinks he can do something crazy with a 4-stop strategy. I just see no way that COD Chaos is able to really do anything by trying to cut out a pit stop the way he's setting up to do so here. And now COD Chaos is in the pits. So now I want to go ahead and look at leg wreck. Is leg wreck going to have a chance to catch and overtake COD Chaos, because COD Chaos has spent too long out there on burned up tires? Darkster is asking if people are pitting every 6 to 7 laps. I can't go by laps, I can go by roughly about time though. Skitty is pitting about once every 18 to 19 minutes. The ESV guys are pitting about once every 20 minutes or so. Eclipse is pitting about once every 20 to 22 and a half minutes. And COD Chaos is about 22 to 24 minutes or somewhere around there. I believe it's 2.5 minutes a lap right now in these conditions. So go ahead and do the math. 2.5 goes into 18 6 times, I believe. Yeah, 2.5 and 2.5 is 5. 5 and 10, so yeah, 10 minutes would be 4 laps, roughly. So I think about 6 to 7, somewhere around there. But some of the drivers like COD Chaos and Eclipse might be able to go about 8 laps, as far as I can tell. It does seem like COD Chaos is going a lot closer. He's closer to the 22 to 24 range, really trying to, I believe, cut out an entire pit stop when it comes down to it. I believe the majority of the field is doing 6 or 7, and I think COD Chaos is really the exception, doing 8. And then Dr. Ice kind of out in his own zone. He went about 8 laps this last stint as well, but he's been doing only about 6 to 7 for the majority of the time. Anyways, when it's come down to it, COD Chaos has completed his stop. And look at this, COD Chaos was looking like he was going to be a sure lock for 4th, but now after making a pit stop, he has fallen behind TBR Virtuoso, behind TNR Skate, behind Leg Wrecked. He is nowhere near the front now. And while COD Chaos will have a tire advantage over everyone ahead of him on track now for the next several laps, I think that this strategy for COD Chaos is not working out. And yes, Darkstar, I believe that the pace is about 2.5 minutes, might be a little closer to 2 minutes and 40 seconds. I know in the dry, because I tuned in and watched the last about 15 minutes of the B Lobby broadcast and saw some clips that looked like the pace in the dry was about 222 to 225. In the wet, you're not massively slower because it's only light rain. So I believe the pace here is about 230 to 235, roughly. So yes, I believe 235 a lap is about what it would be. Also, F1R Eclipse dealing with some traffic for the first time all day today. That is Ruiz Racer, who Eclipse is about to have to deal with. Again, for those of you who care about the ZR team, Ruiz Racer was involved with an accident with Dex Twilight at the top of Al Rouge. We did not catch that on stream, sadly. Twilight's car was completely stalled out, could not move at all, but Ruiz Racer had just enough momentum to putter the car around the circuit and brought it down into the pits. All right, well, if 6 laps is 15.5 minutes, and that would mean 7 laps would be about 18, and 18 minutes is about the time that most of these drivers have been going for. So I would say 7 laps for most of the drivers. Some are pushing 8, and I think COD Chaos may have gone 9 laps this most recent run. Big might. But yeah, Ruiz Racer has now been caught and put a lap down by F1R Eclipse. While Ruiz Racer is gaining the advantage of running in clean air, he just does not seem to have the sheer overall pace to keep himself on the lead lap. For those of you who care about the ESV team, well, earlier there was a fight between Karts and Pob, but after this most recent set of pit stops, Pob has fallen off of Karts, and Karts now gets to turn some clean laps in clean air now. Does not have to worry about any aero wake from the driver ahead. So Karts is likely going to be able to sail away to a second place finish without too much issue whatsoever. Pav, I think, is going to be a similar position, will sail away to a third place finish without anything whatsoever. The real driver to talk about is F1R Leg Wrecked. Every driver on track, including Dex Twilight, who pulled out, and Ruiz Racer, he's passed every driver on track on merit except for COD Chaos. COD Chaos he beat by just not going too far on the tire strategy. And Leg Wrecked, despite starting dead last, is running 4th right now. I do not believe there is enough time for Leg Wrecked to catch Karts or Pob, but Leg Wrecked has been on something else, has been on an absolute incredible tear as this event has gone on. Really, truly a special thing to watch today for Leg Wrecked, but I believe that his forward momentum has pretty much stalled out. He is now in 4th position on track. When it comes to fights on track, though, there was a lot of them going on in the first 15 minutes and still quite a bit throughout the entire first hour, but now seems like the only real battle for position on track is this one here. Hiya Cranky, PTGJ Caesar, and Dex X Donnie here. We're going to go ahead and run on board with X Donnie as he looks at these two going side by side at the bottom of Sector 2. Neck and neck, but it does look like it's going to be Cranky who's just ahead, but they make a lot of contact. They're both going to compromise each other's lines, but Dex Donnie is struggling to try and figure out a way to get alongside, to sneak by here. Nothing yet. Looks like for now, Donnie's just going to have to be content with this. And there you see TNR Skitty and Virtuoso already making their 4th stop. So Skitty and Virtuoso have been paying significantly earlier than the rest of the field every single circuit here now. So Skitty and Virtuoso may actually have to make an extra stop near the end of this event. Oh, big touch onto the dirt there by Hayek Cranky. Is that going to leave him open to attack from Caesar? No, because Caesar backed out of it to not put themselves under risk coming into this chicane. And that's going to keep Donnie right there. So Skitty, Virtuoso, and Big Cry all pit at the same time this time by. And now they come onto the straightaway once again. Down the start-finish straightaway. Completing another lap. No big change between the three of them this time. Bahia Cranky all sorts of sideways going through the hairpin. He leaves the inside open for Jay Caesar. And now Jay Caesar muscles his way by. And Jay Caesar goes up into the 11th position now. Into Alrouge and Radion. Jay Caesar touched the inside dirt just a bit. He's wide, and now Hayek Cranky gets a run back. Hayek Cranky on the outside, Jay Caesar on the inside. Drag race between the two of them down the Camel straightaway, and Dex Donnie is right there. Does Donnie try to do anything crazy? He's gonna put the bumper to the stall tech machine, give him a little bit of a push. Stall tech cuts down in front of Jay Caesar. Jay Caesar backs way out of it, and Dex Donnie has to back out as well. And look at that horrible run. Just a bad run. He was so focused on trying to cut down in front of Jay Caesar that Hayek Cranky completely compromised his line coming out of the Camel straight, and now he loses 2 positions, and Jay Caesar goes back into 11th. Now he has to deal with Dex Donnie pressuring him now. For those of you who care, the gap between Pav and Legrecht, because someone just asked about that, I'm going to do this. I am not going to tell you what the gap is. I'm going to use the points of interest camera. And I'm going to time when Pav's car, as Karts is pitting this time. Is Pav going to pit this time as well? No! Pav stays out another lap. And this is something I talked about earlier. Pav finally saying, I don't want to be on the same pit strategy as Karts. I want to do something different. So Pav's going to stay out a lap. So I'm going to count from a certain time. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007, 1008, 1009, 1010, 1011, 1012, 1013, 1014. So about 14 seconds, probably about 13 3/4 is the gap between Legrecht and ESV Pav right now. I'm going off of when their bumper went by that little bar right in the middle of that hairpin there between the two Forza Motorsport signs. So I calculate about 13 3/4 seconds is the gap on track right now between ESV Pav and F1R Legrecht. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007, 1008, 1009, 1010, 1011, 1012, 1013, 1000. So yeah, about 13 and a half seconds or so is what I can tell, what it looks like the gap is between Pav and Legrecht on circuit. Reminder, Karts has just elected to pit now. Pav is actually staying out an entire extra lap. We have not seen ESV Pav stay out a lap longer than the other ESV driver. This means that while Pav is going to be on older tires now, is going to bleed off a lot of time here, we are now going to see Pav have a tire advantage over Karts for most of the rest of this run, we believe. Again, can't confirm that for sure, but we believe that will be the case. With F1R Eclipse completely out on his own, there is no one who's going to fight with Eclipse at the head of the field. Eclipse is doing something special. It looks like the fight's going to be between Pav and Karts. Some people in the chat seem to think that Legrecht might have a... Wait, what? Someone is saying that Pav has damage. There's engine damage to Pav. That's not going to help. Some people seem to think that Legrecht might be able to catch Pav or Karts. I am not so convinced that's going to happen. We only have about 31 minutes left of racing here. Legrecht would have to catch Pav at a rate of about, a second every 2 minutes, roughly, in order to catch them and start fighting with them near the end. I don't know if Legrecht is a second every 2 minutes faster. That would be about like 9/10 of a second a lap faster. I don't know if Legrecht is 9/10 of a second a lap faster compared to Pav and Karts. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I don't know how confident I would be. Eclipse is pitting, Pav is pitting, Legrecht is pitting. Karts is staying out, though, because he pitted this last circuit. So we anticipate that Karts should still be ahead of Pav after this is over, as Karts has already ran a lap on nice fresh tires, while Pav turned this most recent lap on worn out tires. And sure enough, you already see it on the ticker and on the map there. Karts easily holding the position over Pav. COD Chaos, who has been going longer and longer on his tires as this has gone on, he is now going to briefly cycle up into 4th on circuit. He is just a little bit behind ESV Pav, interestingly enough. But the big thing, though, is that COD Chaos is on tires that have a lot more wear on them than Pav. Now, Pav is on cold tires. It's going to take him until about the end of the Camel Straight for him to warm his tires up. You can see there how Pav went really wide at the top of the hill just because the tires are so cold. COD Chaos has a big run. Is this going to be what he needs to make something happen here? He's got a draft on Pav. Does he try and make a fight on it? Is COD gonna do it? He puts the bumper to him, but does not make the move at the end of the Camel Straight. So now we'll see Pav get his tires up to temperature, and he'll likely start pulling back away from COD Chaos going forward here. Also, Dr. Ice has yet to make his next stop as well. I think the majority of the field is looking at doing a 5-stop strategy. We might see a 6-stop from a few drivers, such as TNR Skating and TBR Virtuoso, but I think the majority of the field are looking at roughly a 5-stop strategy. And yes, I know some of you were joking about Pav's line coming out of the pits, going up through Eau Rouge and Raidillon. I think that has more to do with the fact that you just come out of the pit lane, your front tires are not going to be heated up at all, and your rear tires are going to have even less heat. You're going to have to take a potentially less ideal line going through Eau Rouge and Raidillon just because the tires are not there. Now, it looks like we may have lost the donut car of EBT Big Cry. Yes, it does seem like EBT Big Cry has dropped out of the event, so that will be the second DNF of the event thus far. We're going to try and reach out to EBT Big Cry, see if he wants to talk with us, but if not, well, I can't do anything about it. COD Chaos still runs right in ESV Pav's draft for the moment. I don't know if he's going to try and make a move or if he's just content to run the draft for now. Again, the Dex team, COD Chaos, they need to figure out a way to recover from the massive amount of distance that they lost at the very end of Stint 2 due to running a wild alternate strategy that backfired on them. And I hate to say it, I have a fear that the same thing may happen to COD Chaos this time. They may just be running a poor strategy. Still, no real attack by COD Chaos on ESV Pav. Not this time, it seems. Alright, we're going to go ahead and knock out a mandatory ad break here from Twitch, and we'll be back in about a minute and a half to see if COD Chaos is going to make a move on Pav before he makes a pit stop. We'll be back shortly here at Spa de Francorchamps. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome you back here to Spa de Francorchamps here as we continue to watch Cod Chaos, who is on a radically alternate pit stop strategy. He was right behind Pav, but as the tires are really wearing out on Cod Chaos's machine, he is losing ground to ESV Pav. We believe that Cod Chaos is trying to make it to the end of this race on what would be a 4-stop strategy. He would likely be joined potentially by PTG J Caesar, Dex X Donnie, and ZR Haya Cranky on this 4-stop strategy. Cod Chaos trying to make something crazy happen on an alternate strategy so his team can make up some of the ground lost at the end of Stint 2. Everyone else seems to be committed to a 5-stop strategy. Some drivers such as TNR Skiddy and TBR Virtuoso are likely on something closer to a 6-stop strategy as we are right now. And we have 24 minutes left. Remember, in a TORA event, we typically look at a scenario where everyone stops with 20 minutes on track and everyone records distance there. For those of you who care about the EBT team, the EBT Big Cry team, the one that was, I believe, Spanish, might have been Brazilian Portuguese, but I believe it was Spanish with Homer Simpson donuts all over the place. The EBT team has lagged out. For those of you who care for the EBT team, when it comes to distance, because this is a rain stint, the EBT team's distance here will be 90% of the distance that they cover in Stint 4, assuming they have an entrant still in Stint 4 that runs the entirety of the event. So they will not be gaining 90% of the distance from a dry weather stint. It will be 90% of the distance from one of these rainy stints. So keep that in mind. Also, apparently they are Portuguese, not Spanish, so I do apologize. I did not get a long enough look at the text on the side of the car to deduce if they were Spanish or Portuguese. I just recognize them as one of the countries that was south of the American border, speaking one of the Iberian Peninsula languages. So I do apologize for that misidentification. But the Portuguese team of EBT Big Cry, well, EBT's Big Cry's team, they will still get some distance. We are believing it will be 90% of the distance that the team will set in Stint 4, assuming they're able to run the entirety of Stint 4. Once again, we look at Dex Cod Chaos, and we have to wonder, when is he going to make his next stop? He's going to stay out again, and at the rate this is going, this means that he'll likely stop with about 40 minutes and 45 seconds left on the clock, and he'll likely try to make the rest of the race on that last 19-20 minutes on the set of wet weather tires. For those of you who have not been aware or have kind of checked out or something has happened, this has been a race with the light rain setting the entire time. That means that you do not have any real tire strategy going on. Everyone just throws on the wet tires all the way through. It's just a matter of how far you're willing to push those tires, as Dex Cod Chaos now takes the ESV Pav line. And Cod Chaos is really just trying to push them to an extreme distance. One other driver who I seem to have missed something, India Wara, who had been hanging out about the 9th or 10th position, is now a extra pit stop ahead of everyone else, has fallen back to 13th. I saw them make their 5th pit stop, but I did not see them make their 4th stop, so I have to wonder if India Wara was involved in some sort of accident that I missed. If they were involved in an accident, it must not have been something catastrophic in Al Rouge and Radion. It may have been something that happened way later in the lap, because while they have definitely lost time, they have not lost nearly as much time as someone like Ruiz Racer has, as Ruiz Racer is at this stage of the race the only driver running one lap down in the event. And at the head of the field, it is okay. And the word from India Avocado is that India Wara had a controller disconnect, and that ended up giving him engine damage on his outlap. So that seemed to be the issue. So yeah, not a great time for the NDL team. But F1R Eclipse has led the entire event pretty much flag to flag. No one has overtaken him for the lead of the event. And he has opened up a ridiculous gap over ESV Karts. He is about a 1/5 of a lap ahead of Karts right now. And between Karts and Pav, there is a little bit of inter-team fighting going on. Karts has opened up the gap on Pav, as Pav had a very small amount of engine damage before, and it looks like that may have been enough to push him away from Karts. But now, Karts is going to be on older tires for basically the rest of this run, realistically, and Pav is going to be on slightly better tires for the rest of the run to the end here. So Pav may still have a chance, when it comes to tire life, of catching and running down Karts and nipping him near the end. Now, a change is going to happen very late in the run, but that is something to consider. Cod Chaos is just about to be caught once again by F1R Leg Wrecked, Now, Legrecht was by Codcast earlier, but Codcast is now basically an entire pit stop cut out from his strategy. So Legrecht is going to have to pass Codcast on track. No, Codcast pits now. So this is about the time when we anticipate Codcast would pit. Legrecht is going to stay out as anticipated. So Legrecht will be fourth, but again, we're anticipating that everyone is going to have to make one more stop. We think that Codcast is going to try and make no more stops. We think Codcast is on a 4-stop strategy, and this will be his final stop. We believe that everyone else is on a 5-stop strategy. For Skitty and Virtuoso, it's a little bit more iffy. Can they make it a 5-stop, or are they going to have to pit late for a 6-stop? That is the big question for Skitty and Virtuoso, as these two drivers have been paying earlier than everyone else the entire time. But the way this is working out, I think that Skitty and Virtuoso, if they pit at the end of this lap, they're going to be looking at about 37 minutes left in the race timer. That means 17 minutes more of racing. I think they'll be able to make it 5 stops without too much issue here. Cod Chaos, to put in perspective where he is compared to Virtuoso and Skitty, he is way behind them. He is now on fresh tires, but he is barely ahead of VER's Dr. Ice! And Cod Chaos is going to have to hope that when Skitty and Virtuoso pit, they're going to lose a significant amount of time on track, end up well behind him, and don't run him back down. I hate to say it, but for Cod Chaos, I see no way that he ends up any better than 5th right now. I think F1R Legrecht has driven absolutely fantastically enough to maintain position over the rest of the grid. And now I want to talk one more time about Legrecht. Oh, wrong button. Real quick, as we look at the changes, you can see right there, 14 positions up since the start of this race. Every single position, except for Cod Chaos, has been a position he has made on track. It has been elbows out, driver on driver fighting for position, and he has made up every position. We have seen him make some incredible fights. He even made it up the middle, 3 wide, going through the hairpin of turn 1. Legrecht has been on an insane drive all on his own today, has driven his way up into the 4th position. As Ruiz Racer's Payne now will likely be making his final stop with that. Legrecht has been the driver to watch the entire time. So with that in mind, Legrecht incredibly on track for 4th place. Some drivers earlier were saying, oh, Legrecht might be able to catch Pav. That is not looking likely. It looks like Legrecht is not going to be anywhere near Pav by the end of it unless Pav has some sort of failure in the car or failure with a controller disconnect or damage or something like that. I feel like the ESV teams are good enough that they have maintained their position over Legrecht. But still, 18th to 4th. Yes, we only have 16 drivers running now, but Dex, Twilight, and Ruiz Racer had their accident after Legrecht had already cleared them, and then EBT Big Cry disconnected about 10 minutes earlier, 10 minutes ago when Legrecht was well clear of him. So Legrecht has been on an incredible run as this event has gone on. That is Ruiz Racer, who's ahead of Legrecht right now. Remember, Ruiz Racer is a lap down at the moment. TNR Skitty and TBR Virtuoso are both making their pit stops right now. Skitty and Virtuoso have been paying about a lap earlier than most of the other drivers on circuit. Most of the time, they have not been really pushing their tires super deep into their run. I think this final run will likely be the most aggressive we'll see them use their tires. But again, it looks like in the end, this will still be a nice 5-stop strategy for them. The interesting thing will be, will Skitty and Virtuoso have anything for Dr. Ice and more significantly, Cod Chaos here on the run to the end of this event here. Mind you, Skitty and Virtuoso, they'll be the first 2 drivers of everyone running the top 10 positions to have knocked out their 5th stop thus far in the event. We believe that most of the field, with the exception of Cod Chaos and maybe Dr. Ice, are on a 5-stop strategy. Cod Chaos seems to be committed to a 4-stop, has made all of his stops. Dr. Ice, we're not really sure if he's going to be able to make it to the end on the set of tires he has right now, or if he's going to make another stop. I won't lie, I feel that Dr. Ice is going to have to bite the bullet and pit sooner rather than later for another set of tires here. Jay Caesar and Dex Donnie are still having a bit of a fight right now. Dex Donnie is in a car pinned very similarly to Codcast, and F1R Eclipse is making what should be his final stop with a little less than 16 minutes left in the event here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and knock out our last Twitch-mandated ad break for the run. When we come back, we will be with this race to the end here. So we'll keep an eye on that, but we'll be back shortly here after this final Twitch mandated ad break in the middle of the race here at Spa de Francorchamps as we watch Caesar and Donnie on their run to the end here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Spa de Francorchamps as the field is on the final 14 minutes, a little less than 14 minutes of this run. Everyone, or most everyone, seems to have made their final stops. Jay Caesar and Dex Donnie having a bit of a fight here for 9th and 10th position with India Wara hanging out behind them. Wara trying to recover from what we believe is a controller disconnect, as the information we were told by the India team, from a controller disconnect earlier, and Dex Donnie muscles his way by Jay Caesar at the end of the Camel Straight. And now Jay Caesar under threat from India Wara. We do not know if Jay Caesar or Donnie have the tires to go to the end or if they are going to go ahead and abort and make a 5th pit stop. Right now, Dex Cod Chaos is currently running in 5th position on track. He is ahead of TNR Skitty by a respectable amount. The lap time difference between the two of them should not be that massive. I think that Cod Chaos, despite everything that's happened, might be able to eke out a 5th place result. It's not great. It's not really going to help them make up the time they lost at the end of Stint 2. But I do believe that Dex Cod Chaos' entry are going to bring home a top 5 result at the end here. For those of you who care about the ESV guys, well, I said earlier that Pav went ahead and pitted a lap earlier to Kart to try and offset. That has changed now. That has been completely thrown away. Karts and Pav pitted at the same time on their final set of stops. So Karts and Pav are both back to being even on tires right now. And Pav is starting to reel Karts back in, but with only about 12 minutes left, I don't think there's any realistic way that Pav catches Karts. We're looking at about 4 more laps left in the race right now. For those of you who care, you will be seeing more running here at Spa de Francorchamps. When this stint is over, I will go ahead and once this is over and I try to get some post-stint interviews, I'll shut the broadcast and then restart a broadcast for Stint 4 after this stint is done. So do keep that in mind. We will still be here for Stint 4. I will also try to cover as much of Stint 5 as I can, although there is a bit of a Stint reset that will happen between Stint 5 and 6. Hopefully I can catch all of Stint 5, but if not, my priority sadly does have to go to broadcasting all of Stint 6, otherwise the broadcast completely breaks down. But I will do everything I can to catch as much of Stint 5 as possible. I will capture all of Stint 4 and Stint 6 on this channel, so do not go away if you are invested in how the rest of this Enduro here at Spa de Francorchamps goes. Pav continues to slowly roll down on ESV Karts. No sign of damage on Karts' machine. I think Karts is just trying to bring it home nice and steadily, not try to push for anything crazy. F1R Eclipse, though, sailing away with an easy lead here. The only real fight of note right now was Jay Caesar and Dex Donnie. These two have been going back and forth for the last several laps. Dr. Ice has already pitted and ended up ahead of them, so Dr. Ice might try and run down Virtuoso and Skitty here And again, those two are going to try, but I think they're going to fail at running down. COD Chaos, leg wrecked, has pulled off an incredible run from 18th to 4th. The ESV guys are going to be 2nd and 3rd, and then Eclipse is going to win this. It looks like Haya Cranky has stabilized in about the 11th position right now. Might end up falling behind if they burn their tires up too much near the end. We'll keep an eye on that. Buralud Bedtime has been kind of fighting all through the rear and the middle of the field. Looks like they're going to stabilize in 13th. Wara has been forced to make an extra pit stop as they burn their tires up too far. I think 13th or 12th is going to be the best that the NDL team can do. CH Racing has had a silent, disappointing time in 14th. MFG Sam, I think this is only the second time I've said his name since the opening laps of the event. Looks like he's going to be 15th. And Rua's Racer is going to be a lap down, but he will still be running at the end of this. He will be 16th at the end of this. Real quickly, just for a bit of comparison, comparing Dr. Ice to Virtuoso and Skiddy. Dr. Ice is going to be looking at 16.5% tire wear right now. For Virtuoso, who is up the track from him, he is looking at 27% tire wear right now. And TNR Skiddy is looking at a tire wear number of 28% just about right now. So Dr. Ice has about a 10 to 13% tire advantage over Skiddy and Virtuoso, but I do not know if that is enough time for it to the end. And yes, I'm aware that NDL is short for noodle. I'm just very lazy, and my brain seems to think that spelling out NDL is easier than say noodle. I do not know why my brain does that, but it does that, and I kind of don't care enough to change that. It's weird. I'm sorry if that pisses off the team, but for whatever reason, my brain continues to keep replacing NDL with NDL instead of noodle, so I don't think that's going to change. Yeah. It looks like Haya Cranky has gone ahead and made a stop, as has Jay Caesar. So the two of them have said we cannot go to the end on the tires that we have. So that is going to cycle Burlud Bedtime up into the 10th position. But NDL Wara is going to be ahead of Haya Cranky, and now is going to have a chance to maybe nip Jay Caesar for 11th. And yes, Wara is going to nip Jay Caesar for the position. 8 minutes left. Everyone, you have to have made your mandatory 4th stop, although I believe with almost everyone running a 5-stop strategy, mandatory 4th stop not really an issue here. So it's going to be interesting because Jay Caesar now behind Wara, but Jay Caesar will now have fresh tires to the end here. Oh, there are no mandatory stops. That is a first. Most tour events have mandatory stops, but I guess there are no mandatory stops according to Dirkser. Huh. I must have missed something. Well, not the first time I've made this mistake. I do apologize for that. We're just going to ignore the mandatory stops thing. But still, Wara is now behind Barud Bedtime, has tires that should let them catch it. It keeps saying Bedtime, it's Bitume. Wara might be able to run down Bitume, but the bigger thing is that Wara is going to have to deal with Jay Caesar pressuring them from behind here. Again, looking between Dr. Ice, Virtuoso, Skiddy, and COD Chaos, there is nothing to suggest that the four of them are all going to close together and catch each other a little bit more. So it seems like right now, this is the most... Oh, Dex Donnie is paying. So Donnie also tried to go a little bit farther on the tires, but 64%, well, look at that. The fuel seems to be more of an issue. They do not have the fuel to go any farther. So they're going to pit, and when they come out, they're only going to have about 2 minutes, and they're going to end up behind Bitume, Wara, Jay Caesar, might end up behind Haya Cranky, and CH Racing as well. So it's just not... Doesn't look like it's a... great strategy choice by Dex X Donnie there. It seems like both of the Dex teams are really struggling with their strategy today. Real quick, Darkser, when you did the test on the tire wear, was that was that test done with tuning done on the cars, or was the test done with no tuning done on the cars and the cars completely stock? I am just a little bit curious If you do not want to share, I completely understand, but I am just a little bit curious if that's something you want to share or not. As we watch this stalking battle here, as Wara and J.C.'s continue to close down slowly on Bitume. All testing was done with full tunes and 2.5x wear in qualifying conditions and Stint 4 conditions. Okay, thank you very much. I was a little bit curious. So yes, they did do the balance testing between the 3 cars with full tuning done. Thank you very much for that heads up. As we continue to watch this fight, well, a potential fight close in as Bitume misses another corner and Wara gets a little closer. Wara is actually pulling away from Jay Caesar as Wara has tires are about a lap fresher than Jay Caesar's right now. Wara runs right behind Bitume now. About 4.5 minutes left, so they're going to finish this lap and have the majority of one more lap after this. Does Wara have enough to get by Bitume and recover back to a 9th place position after going off circuit several times and having engine damage earlier in the event? Again, there is nothing to implicate that the spots of 4th through 7th are going to all get closer. It looks like Legrek, Codcast, Skitty, Virtuoso, and Dr. Ice are all going to stabilize. The fight seems to be for 9th on back. Wara has caught Bitume. He looks to the inside. It is nose to tail as they come onto the the sector 3 straight away now. Accelerating through here. Wara looks to the inside, now falls back in line behind Bitume as they go through the high-speed left-hander. Wara should have tires good enough to let them go for a big lunge. Do you try and make it? Do you go for a lunge? He's looking to the outside. Gonna try and go side by side, pass him around the outside. And he's gonna do it under braking. Incredible job by Wara. Outbreaks him the long way around before they get to the chicane, and Wara moves up into 9th on circuit. And now acceleration begins once more as they power down and go across the line. A little less than 3.5 minutes left, so I was wrong. These drivers will get the entirety of this following lap. So Wara's going to try and pull away from Bitume here. Bitume's going to try and stay in Wara's draft to stay ahead of Jay Caesar and X Donnie. Hiya Cranky has lost track with them. CH Racing is nowhere close. AFG Sam is nowhere close as well. Something else to note, Karts is just about to catch traffic. This would be the second time, actually, that Karts would have caught Ruiz Racer here. I am actually, as this is coming down to the end, unless Codcast's tires completely fall off a cliff here, I think Codcast is going to maintain 5th position. It's not great when it comes to everything overall, but I do think that Codcast is going to pull off 5th. The strategy is impressive. It's just not going to be enough to help make up what that team lost in the prior stint, sadly. But still, Codcast putting on a very, very solid run on this alternate strategy. I am legitimately impressed with what he's been able to do when everyone is basically limited to running the same tire compound, because in the wet conditions, there's only the wet weather tire. This is not like Formula 1 or WEC where you have 2 different kinds of wet weather tires. There's only one wet weather tire in this game. Everyone was locked into the same tire. It would have been very tempting to just mimic everyone else's strategy here. Also, why are people doing 5 stops? Let me show you what Codcast's tire wear is looking like right now. He is at 65% on the tire wear. With 1 minute and 30 seconds left, he is going to be running at about 70% on the tire wear by the very end of this stint here. So, with that in mind, 5 stops, ideal if you want to make sure that you never get deep into the 60 or 70% wear mark, and that seems to be the strategy for most of the field here. Skitty and Virtuoso have been the drivers who have been most committed to that, really trying to stay away from heavy tire wear. They're at 58%, they're going to be at about 60% when the timer's up, but that is what it's all coming down to right now. And for those of you who are watching this later on YouTube, somebody in the comments was asking, why would you not just commit to a 4-stop strategy all the way through? Basically, Four-stop strategy works well if you are counting on cutting out the amount of time that you would lose from making an extra pit stop, but you're still going to lose time from the tires falling off as it goes on. In the end, it's going to come down to, do you want more time in the pits when you're not racing, but when you are racing you're faster, or do you want to minimize your time on pit lane, but potentially spend more laps slower? It looks like Dex Codcast is the only driver who said he'd rather run less time on pit lane, more time on track. Everyone else seems to have committed to running fewer laps, but all of them being faster overall throughout the event. As we are in our final 10 seconds, as we watch F1R Eclipse coming to the line. 1 second. Time's up. Over. Plow. And that will bring us to the end here of Stint 3. We are now officially halfway through the 12 hours of Spa. F1R Eclipse will come home first. ESV Karts will come home in second. ESV Pav will come home in third. F1R Leg Wrecked, driver of the stint, without a doubt, will go from 18th to 4th, with every overtake except one being a on-track mono-e-mono overtake. Dex Codcast is the only driver to make the four-stop work, and Codcast will come home in 5th. TNR Skitty will come home in 6th position. TBR Virtuoso will come home in 7th. VER's Dr. Ice will come home in 8th. India Wara will recover from multiple off-track excursions and engine damage to come home in 9th. Bitume will come home in the 10th position. 11th will go to PTG J Caesar, just barely ahead of Dex X Donnie in 12th. 13th will go to ZR Haya Cranky. Just behind them, you can see, is CH Racing 88. Then after that will be AFMG Sam, who will be 15th, and Ruiz Racer will be the only car a lap down. He will be 16th, but he was at least running at the end. Two drivers do not finish the event. That is EBT Big Cry, who had a disconnect, I think, with about 25 minutes left in the running. And then Dex Twilight, who was involved with an accident with Ruiz Racer, but unlike Ruiz Racer, Twilight was not able to get the car rolling again, so they had to pull out. That is your 16 cars, and that will be the end of the event of Stint 3 here at Spa. We're going to knock out a Twitch ad break, and then we're going to wait a bit and see if anyone in our top 5 finishers are willing to jump in and give a post-stint interview. I'm not going to harass them because I know a lot of drivers like to do double stints. I know for some of the European guys, it's getting a little bit late in the day for them. They might want to get off. Go ahead, talk to their friends, talk to their family, talk to their dog, talk to their local parliament before going ahead and going to sleep. But I will try and get some interviews done with some of our top 5 finishers when we come back from the ad break. But for those of you who want more racing, don't worry. We will still be here, and we will be covering the Stint 4 as much as Stint 5 as possible, and Stint 6 a little bit later. But we will be back shortly here at Spa de Francorchamps to try and get some interviews going here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are just here waiting to see when F1R Eclipse moves. Once we see him move on track, we anticipate that we will be able to start inviting people for post-race interviews. But with how many drivers are already backing out, I do imagine that there are a lot of people who are either not interested in doing the interviews or going to try and double stint. So I'm only going to try and send one invite out and do our top 5 finishers. And if no one jumps in, so be it. And we'll just move over to the next stream. But I do want to say very quickly to everyone, thank you very much for joining us thus far in today's event. And we will still be here for the next 3 streams. For the next 3 stints, we will be trying to cover as much of the A-Lobby action to the end here.